Now, if you're going to call yourself a master of Judogatami from bottom position, and you want to be effective when people are standing over you, you've got to become familiar with two different ways to use your arm to scoop inside his legs. There's inside scoops and outside scoops. And there's times to use each one of them. Let's have a look at this right now. From a situation where I have a training partner in my closed guard, I have a basic choice between an inside scoop, where my right arm scoops inside his left leg, like so, and an outside scoop, where, say for example, I had a full Judogatami, he starts to lock up, and from here goes into stack me, and from here I go from an inside scoop, my arm inside my opponent's left leg, to an outside scoop, where my right arm goes outside his right leg, and takes me around the corner. Okay? One scoop was inside and one scoop was outside. In a different context, we now have a standing opponent inside our closed guard. We manage to keep his head down, and as a result, we walk our legs down his spine and lock up here. Okay? As I make the transition into the judo, you can see I've taken an inside scoop. Let's stand up straight. And from here, I have the inside scoop for the Judogatami, standing up straight. From here, my right arm now switches from inside scoop to an outside scoop. And I'm scooping the outside of his leg. And as a result, we're able to put him down to the floor. Okay? The outside scoop enables you to turn a much greater distance underneath your opponent. And it is a very, very valuable tool in two different contexts. In a kneeling situation where he's down on two knees and he's trying to stack me, it takes me out the back door. In a standing situation where my opponent's standing physically over me as I'm trying to apply Judogatami, it greatly increases the sweeping force that I can bring to bear upon my opponent. You must become a master of the use of both inside scoops and outside scoops. Remember, the inside scoop will bring you to a 90-degree angle with your opponent. That's good. A lot of times, 90 degrees is more than enough. But the outside scoop will take you beyond 90 degrees and either take you out the back door to a position of safety when he's on two knees, or create an incredibly strong sweeping effect on someone who's standing over you. Let's have a look at both of them again, because you guys have to become good at both. Okay, if he's down on two knees and we've managed to get a top lock, he's locked up, we use the inside scoop to get our initial 90-degree angle on our opponent. And that sets up the entry into the move. So we've got the juji now. If my opponent were naive and I was able to finish right from here, congratulations, the fight's over. But a lot of opponents aren't naive, and they start stacking you in this position. So now I switch from the inside scoop and I go to the outside scoop. My right arm goes outside his right leg. And as a result, I can turn a much greater angle so that my head comes completely out the back door. And now we're in the perfect position to start putting him down into a winning position. In the standing situation, we have an opponent standing up in our closed guard. We pull in with the legs and we access the arms just like so. I walk my feet down to a top lock. He goes to posture up and away. I start with an inside scoop as he's pulling up and away. And then from here, the leg goes over the top. As he tries to posture up and away, now my hand position changes and I switch to an outside scoop. And as a result, we end up with a perfect sweeping motion down to the floor. Mastering both inside scoop and outside scoop in situations where my opponent is kneeling and where my opponent is standing is a big part of your ability to deal with resistance, whether it be standing and posturing resistance or kneeling and stacking resistance. You must, if you're going to call yourself a master of Judogatami, become highly adept in the use of both inside scoops and outside scoops. Know when to use one, when it's appropriate to use the other. Typically, if someone's on two knees, we use an outside scoop to come out the back door and put him on his back. We use outside scoops in standing situations to get a greater angle on our opponent and a stronger sweeping force to put him on his back. We're looking at Jujigatami from bottom position. We're starting to look at the interesting situation where our opponent stands up in our closed guard. Things always get a little trickier when someone stands up in a closed guard. Why? Because their shoulders are getting further away from you. And we know now that the number one predictor of whether we're going to be successful with Jujigatami is how close can I get my hips to his shoulders and how well can I keep them there once they're there. Once someone stands up in your closed guard, the distance between their shoulders and your hips starts to increase. So our whole thing is to keep his head lower than his hips. His head lower than his hips so we can get our hips to his shoulders. Then from there we can be successful. But there's always going to be people who do a good job of posturing inside your closed guard once they stand up. And their hips and their head start to change in relationship to each other. The head starts to go higher than the hips. If Placido is in a standing position, currently his head is lower than his hips, down here. As the head starts to rise, we get to a critical point where the head is the same height as the hips. That's pretty much your last chance to start locking on Jujigatamis. There are some exceptions to that rule, but as a general rule, it's not a bad one. Okay? The further his head goes up towards vertical, the more difficult the task of attacking a Jujigatami from bottom position becomes. By the time he gets to a 45-degree posture, it's getting very difficult, and your chances of successfully applying a Juji now start going down dramatically. By the time he gets to vertical posture, where the shoulders are over the hips, it's gone. It's out the window. Okay? So you've got to start asking yourself, okay, you showed me how to apply the Jujigatami on someone whose shoulders are lower than his hips. What do you do when the hips start going up towards vertical, well above the hips? Well, my advice there is always the same. Put them down. Don't try to attack the Jujigatami from that low percentage position. Okay, let's have a look at this. What's the mechanism by which I'm going to put him down? Let's introduce you guys to the handstand sweep and then use that to set up Jujigatami attacks. Now, guy's in my closed guard and he stands up and I fail to bring him in with my legs. I fail to control his head and he goes up to vertical posture. The moment he goes up into vertical posture, we're going to take one of our arms, I'm choosing my right arm, and I'm going to scoop inside his ankle. I go down to the ankle, don't come up to the knee, stay on the ankle. From here, my second hand goes on the floor, just like so. Okay? Now, it's very important what I do with my head. I don't want to look directly at my opponent. I want to put my ear on the floor. That is very important. Again, don't look directly at your opponent. Put your ear on the floor. Now, with the handstand in place, I focus on using a back heel of my legs so that my hips rise and my hips start to go over his thigh muscle. The idea is not just to push into your opponent. The idea is to climb over his thigh muscle. And as a result, we quickly knock him down. If he's an idiot and lands on his shoulder, you're mounted. So all of your opponents are going to land on an elbow and try and come up to a hand. Like so. Again, if he's an idiot and falls on his shoulder, you're mounted on him. Okay? No one's going to do that. They're all going to try and prop on their elbow and then climb up so they'll end up in positions like so. Okay? Once again, we have an opponent here in our closed guard. I scoop inside and I bring my body to his ankle. The straighter my arm, the less effective I am. I want my head as close to his foot as possible. Now from here, my hand goes on the floor and my ear goes on the mat and we knock him down. Okay? And this is the handstand sweep. Once again, down. My opponent goes up. I fail to control his posture, so I back heel with my legs. I scoop, I bring everything in, and then from here, we put him down and we come up so our head is the same height as his head. Okay? Because our heads are the same height, we're in a good position now to go to work and attack with our Jujigatamis, etc., etc. Let's have a look one more time at the general scenario here. We've got an opponent in our closed guard, and he's done a good job of standing up. He's also done a good job of achieving vertical posture. Presumably he'll be looking at me instead of the ceiling. And from this situation, we scoop inside our training partner's ankle, just like so. Okay? My hand goes in. Now look how my legs operate, make a strong base. From here, I take my hips high, like so. I put my ear on the floor, and as a result, I easily put him down and climb up to a situation where my head is the same height as his. Don't come in the situations where your head is lower than his and he gets back up on top of you. It's always important that I never finish in this position. Now he gets up and he wins the battle for top position. It's very, very important in these situations. He goes to stand and we immediately get our head higher than his head. Okay, now we can dominate the action from this position. This is the handstand sweep. Now, let's start to see how Jujigatami becomes a practical way to attack a vertically postured opponent because of this handstand sweep. Okay, first, we scoop inside the leg. Second, we handstand and we put him down, just like so. From this position, my opponent has a bunch of options. The most common option we see is our opponent tries to recover his lost top position. So he takes his hand and puts it on my chest and goes to push. Not a bad idea. If he pushes strong enough, maybe he can put me back down and recover. And the most I score is an advantage. I don't score any points. So we scoop inside, we climb, and we put him down. As I see him pushing, I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to overwrap my training partner's arm. I'm going to bring my head down and I'm going to throw my legs over the top and catch a hold of my training partner. As a result, we end up in a perfect position to go on the attack with Jujigatami. Once again, from a situation where we start off in a closed guard, from here, I bring my elbow across. I bring my hand into place and I knock my training partner down. He elects to push on my chest. I climb up, I catch my training partner's arm, and my leg goes either knee in front or leg around. And as a result, we end up with a clean turn into the Jujigatami position and the finish. Again, my opponent goes to stand up, we scoop inside the leg, and I see him starting to go on the attack. Notice how I turn my right knee down. My right knee is up. It makes for an awkward transition of my left cross-face leg. So I turn the knee down and I catch. My head comes down towards his legs, and now we're in the perfect position to go rolling on through and into a win. Let's clearly outline some different ways of performing this move and why we might choose one and why we might choose another. The handstand sweep never really changes. From here, as he pushes, I turn my knees down and I bring my hips up to his armpit. So when we make the catch, I assess how far his head is from me. The further his head is from me, the more inclined I am to bring my knee in front of his head. Then I just touch my two knees together and roll my training partner through and replace the cross-face leg. If, on the other hand, when we come into this position, if I see the head is closer, then in these circumstances, I may well go through and make the initial hook straight to the cross-face. So there's no need to replace the cross-face leg after we've completed the roll. In these ways, we can take a vertically standing opponent and knock him down to his butt. Immediately, we can apply a threat of Jujigatami when he tries to frame and push away and recover his lost position. This way, you can realistically take someone who stood up vertically in your closed guard and attack with Jujigatami, something you could never do if you went directly to the Jujigatami. Now, we just looked at a fantastic way to take one of the hardest targets in jiu-jitsu, a guy who's standing in vertical posture. This is the most difficult person imaginable to hit a judo-gatame out from bottom position. If you went directly for the judo, I'd say it's pretty much impossible. Once the guy gets vertical posture, it's gone. But if we combine the idea of a handstand sweep that puts our opponent and breaks him down to a hip, then we can come forward on our opponent, elicit a defensive reaction, and attack the juji. Okay? In the previous move, our opponent was posting and framing on our chest. Pretty soon, your opponent's going to figure out that's a bad idea. You're going to get arm locked. So my opponent goes up, and from here, we knock him down. Okay? In the previous move, he was framing on my chest. And as a result, we over-framed, and then from here we went into juji. Pretty soon he's going to figure out it's a bad idea to put a hand on the chest and push. It's going to give away judo-gatame every time. So instead, they start putting their arm around your waist, like so. Okay? And then they go to recover. However, this just sets up a different kind of finish. Whenever we see this, instead of using a conventional judo-gatame, we're going to go into what we call a 3/4 judo-gatame. We're soon going to be spending a lot of time on 3/4 judo-gatames. Here's your first look. In a 3/4 juji, I bring my right foot over his shoulder, just like so. Now, I willingly go down to my back. You find yourself in something rather like a triangle. But instead of a triangle, I'm going to shift my hips out to the side and brush my opponent's here. So my hand goes from one side to the other. And then from here, we go over the top into a 3/4 juji. The difference in a 3/4 juji is I have two cross-face legs. So when he goes to yank out, it's impossible. And the braking pressure from here is enormous. Once again, my opponent goes to stand up in my closed guard. From here, we lock. He puts his arm around my waist. It's so easy now just to kick over the shoulder. Now, as he tries to yank away from me, look how it's an easy thing for me to brush the here, bring the legs over, and apply the 3/4 juji right from this position. And it's a punishing lock. The great advantage of a 3/4 judo-gatame is that it has two cross-face legs instead of one. The disadvantage is you no longer have a torso leg. However, the extra weight over the head creates an incredibly strong control of your opponent's upper body through the head. In addition, it creates an unusually strong braking pressure. I often coach my students to utilize the 3/4 judo-gatame. Another great advantage, of course, is your opponent tries to stack you, you can always go back to a triangle. So it gives you great versatility between the arm lock attack and the strangle attack. Now we're looking at judo-gatame from bottom position. We're going to switch our focus now to a different form of judo-gatame, one that I favor immensely. This is 3/4 judo-gatame. We have an opponent lying down. Okay, we saw earlier in the video, a full judo-gatame refers to any situation where my 2 feet are across my opponent's body and I have a cross-face leg and a torso leg. Okay, in a 3/4 judo-gatame, I bring both feet as cross-face legs. So you've gained something enormous here. You've gained a stronger control of your opponent's head because you've got two cross faces. It cost you something. You no longer have quite as much control of the torso. There is a danger now that an opponent could, for example, grab a hold of your leg and shove both cross-face legs over and start to escape. But don't worry, we got that covered. Later on in the video, we'll see what to deal with that, don't worry. Okay. There are other advantages to having two cross-face legs. It means that anytime my opponent comes up, he's coming up into both arm locks and triangles. Okay, 3/4 juji puts enormous weight and pressure over the head and immediately creates a double threat of triangle and armbar together. Okay, it also has a third great advantage. It makes turning escapes much more difficult. When my opponent goes to turn out, the control of the head is much greater than a conventional judo-gatame. Okay, my two legs are so close together that he can't separate them and start turning out. Okay, if Placido grabs a hold of my foot and pushes my feet apart, he can easily complete a turnout. However, if my 2 feet are locked in at the neck and he goes to take my feet away, it's physically impossible. And from here, the turnout becomes almost impossible. So there are some major advantages to applying the 3/4 Jujigatami. In addition, I'm not going to say this is true every time, but a lot of times it's a faster move. Okay, you can throw your legs to a 3/4 Juji a lot faster than you can with a regular full Juji. I'm going to start looking now at ways in which I use 3/4 Jujigatami from bottom position. The general rule of thumb is this: any move that sets up a triangle sets up a 3/4 Jujigatami. Okay, so many of the setups that I showed you in the triangle video will also apply here. I'm going to show you the one which I use more than any other by a landslide, which is from a supine position. This is the clamp guard. From a situation where my training partner is in my closed guard, I'm going to take inside position. I'm going to pommel my hands in 1, 2. I'm going to pull with my legs and put his hands on the floor. As a result, we can come to headlock and bicep. From headlock and bicep, I bring my hips out and I put my knee in, just like so. Once my knee goes in here, we've created a situation where you have one arm outside my legs and one arm trapped inside my legs, same as you would for a triangle. Now from here, I place my foot over the top and I lock. As my opponent goes to posture out of a triangle, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I go around the corner and we've got a 3/4 Jujigatami for a strong finish. Once again, from a situation where we start off in a closed guard, I come to the inside position, I pull in and lock. I come into the clamp position. From here, my legs go over the top. I see him trying to yank away from me, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Now we go around the corner and find ourselves in a winning situation. And from here, there's the arm stretched out. You've got a full 3/4 Jujigatami locked on your opponent. You can use this in so many different ways. From any supine situation, that clamp is going to be money in the bank. Okay, we get a hold of our opponent, our knee comes in, and look how easy it is to punch in over the top. Okay, then from here, there's the turn, there's the lock, and you can see when he tries to clear my legs off, it's a difficult thing to achieve in the time available. Okay, and we often get into the finish. On the few occasions your opponent can clear the knee off by pushing, all I do is I just cross my feet and pinch my knees, and we still have the same lock ready for the finish. Okay, and this creates enormously strong pressure. Let's look now at the relationship between the 3/4 Jujigatami and the crossed feet or closed 3/4 Jujigatami. I'll demonstrate it from a different angle. Okay, in a conventional 3/4 Juji, okay, we just have our 2 feet together. In a closed version, his head comes out, so there's no cross-face leg, and I just lock my ankles. I pinch my 2 knees together around his head. He tries to posture up and finds himself in a situation where we quickly get the break. Okay? Why is it happening so easily? Because I have the overwrap grip on the arm, which always magnifies the breaking pressure of a lock. As his head comes up into center, look how we turn the corner, and then from here, we get a quick finish. So I have the choice between the cross-face leg and the closed version, both of which create enormous pressure. So if you ever lose the cross-face, just cross your ankles and you've got an equally tough lock. Bear in mind that the 3/4 Juji does not have to be performed with the overwrap grip, even though that is my favorite. Okay, it can also be done very well indeed with the hand on the chest. So from a situation where I go in and lock up, I see him going to posture up and away from me. From here, with hand on chest, it's just as successful. And from here, we have enormous control of our opponent's head. His head starts to posture up. Look how it's an easy thing to lock in over the top and create strong breaking pressure. Okay, so there's the 3/4 Jujigatami from bottom position. One of my favorite ways to work. Anything that sets up a triangle will set up a 3/4 Juji. It creates a situation where if your opponent comes forward to avoid the armbar, he goes right into a triangle. If his head moves away to avoid the triangle, he goes right back into an armbar. You can create an incredible dilemma based around his head position through the use of the triangle on the one hand and the 3/4 Juji on the other. We're making good progress on Jujigatami from bottom position. Let's look now at one of the strongest variations of Jujigatami, and this is going to do something interesting. So far, I've been coaching you guys on most occasions to bring his elbow towards the center line. And we've seen that's a prerequisite for many of the Jujigatami attacks we look at. Now I'm going to coach you to do something different. I'm going to ask you to take your opponent's elbow not towards the center line, but across it and beyond. Interesting things start to happen whenever you take your opponent's elbow beyond the center line. First things first, you're immediately exposing your opponent's back. That's always a good thing. Secondly, you're going to get some enormously strong and difficult to defend Jujigatamis. We're going to coach you to take your opponent's elbow across the center line and down to the floor. And then we're going to bring in a second weapon that we've been looking at already in this video, the idea of an overwrap grip. The beauty of overwrap grips is they create enormous tightness and control around your opponent's lower arm. They make it very difficult for him to lock his two hands together. And we know from earlier in the video that 90% of the resistance to any Jujigatami is going to come from the other arm. So if we use an overwrap grip, we take away 90% of the resistance right off the bat. That's a huge advantage in a fight situation. Let's have a look now at the idea of taking the elbow across the center line, employing an overwrap grip, and really shutting down your opponent's ability to stop us from attacking effectively with Jujigatami. Okay, we've got an opponent here in our closed guard. We're going to employ a simple strategy where we get a hold of our training partner's elbow, just like so, and we're going to start pulling in with the legs. Do not try to pull your opponent's arm across the center line with your arms. I don't care how strong you are, you're not that strong. My opponent can simply put his other hand on my chest. He pulls, I pull, he wins every time. Why? Because it's only my hands against his entire shoulder girdle, lat muscles, and rotational power of his hips and shoulders. That's a losing equation. My hands, I was cursed with weak hands to begin with. There's no way my hands could do it, and I don't care how strong yours are, they can't do it either. If I hold on here and he just yanks, he wins every time, no matter how hard I hold on. So the idea is to stabilize his arm with my hands and pull with my legs. That's what brings him by. And I'm posting on that elbow, so his elbow goes across the center line. Okay? My whole idea is to take his wrist like so, to like so that his wrist is inside my wrist. My wrist has the outside position. So we start by taking the hand to the center line. I pull in with my legs and I switch to a position where his arm gets caught across. Okay? When he goes to recover his position, I pull in with the legs. That's what's holding him in place. If I just hold with my hand, he can easily recover position. It's my legs pulling in that make it tough. Now from here I catch over my opponent's body and I shift my hips out, and lo and behold, his arm is now well across my center line. Now I go through and I put my elbow over his elbow. So when he goes to yank his arm out, it's impossible. Now watch my left arm. I flip the head. I was behind his head, my elbow comes over, and I flip the head. When he tries to bring his head forward, he can't. Now we end up in a perfect Jujigatami. When he tries to lock his hands together defensively, one hand can't find the other. There's no defense. When he tries to yank his arm free, it's locked in place. And from here, we get an enormously tight finishing pressure. So once again, I take the hand towards the center line. I don't make the mistake of pulling with my hands. I pull with my legs. And everything goes across in front. I take my arm around behind him and shimmy my hips out and lock. A position I often refer to as a side scissor. My body out to one side behind his elbow and my legs scissored around him. As he tries to pull his arm free, I cover it with my elbow. Now I flip the head. My elbow flips to the opposite side and forms a frame. I now shift my hips, throw my legs, and we're locked in place. When he tries to lock his arms defensively, there's no way one hand can find the other. I deny one arm to the other arm. When he tries to yank out, it's almost impossible. And from here, the breaking pressure is immense. Let's show it from a different angle. We start off here. We draw our training partner's arm around the corner, predominantly with our legs. I place my arm around and I shimmy my hips out to the side, attaining the so-called side scissor position. I put my elbow over his and I flip the head. As always from here, we split the legs and throw to catch all the way up, my knee over his neck. When he tries to yank free, it's impossible. When he tries to link arms, that's impossible. And as a result, we get bone-breaking pressure very, very readily. This method of going deep across the center line and trapping your opponent's arm in an overwrap grip is one of the strongest and most effective ways to negate resistance and break through to get your opponent's arm with a punishing form of judogatame. Okay, you've been bravely following me through a lot of information on this judogatame video. Let's quickly recap some things which I'm sure you picked up on by now. First, you know already I'm a big fan of overwrap grips with judogatame. Okay, they make it much harder for your opponent to lock his hands defensively, almost impossible in fact. They add greatly to the breaking power. They also add greatly to the overall tightness of the lock, so it's very hard for your opponent to yank his arm away. You also know that I'm a big fan of inside positioning. Whenever I have someone in a closed guard, I often make a switch to a position I call the clamp, where my knees take inside and outside position at the same time to trap my opponent's head and arm, and I separate one arm from the other. Out of the clamp comes one of the tightest and nastiest judogatames you'll ever see. It's a belly down judogatame with an overwrap grip. It has the strength of a belly down finish, which means I'm using gravity to assist in the break. And of course, it has the obvious advantages of all overwrap grips. It's hard for your opponent to defend his arms. It's hard for him to yank the arm out. And it adds greatly to the breaking mechanics of the move. Let's have a look at it from closed guard. From a situation where we have a closed guard, as always, we take the inside position and we pull him forward and go into the clamp. You'll notice that his right arm is locked in behind mine. From this position, I'm going to start to turn and bring my body as though I'm going to go belly down on my training partner. Okay? I'm going to take my foot and put it down to the floor so my toes go on the mat. I'm going to pull my elbow back towards myself. I'm going to heist so that everything comes up off the floor and my knee goes in front of his head, just like so. You can see that I have the scoop grip on my training partner, an overwrap grip, just in like so. When he goes to yank his arm out, it's almost impossible. Now, all I do is I put my hand on the floor and I arch forward. We've got a nasty, nasty finish on our training partner's arm. The key is to make sure that his elbow goes vertical, okay? So as we start to turn out into the clamp position, I need to turn my body around his elbow. And as a result, we end up in this very, very strong attacking position, okay? If it all went to hell, we could always roll through. But most of the time, we don't need to do that. We just start that action driving forward into a very strong lock. So once again, we start off in a closed guard situation. He is the inside position. We take the inside position from him and modify it into the clamp. Okay. From here, we're always looking to place our foot down on the floor so my toes go on the mat. I invert my knee. Don't try and do it with your foot dead on the floor like this. I put my toes on the mat and my knee touches the mat like so. Now we bring everything across in front. When he tries to yank out, it's almost impossible. And from here, it's a particularly tight and nasty finish in that belly down position. It's an easy way to get into arm locks on people who normally are difficult to get arm locks on. Why? Because you never use the traditional 2-on-1 setup to get to your opponent's arm. There's no warning in particular that an arm lock is coming. Many of your opponents are afraid of an omoplata, maybe a monoplata. They're not expecting the judogatame. So one more time, from a different angle. From here, I start by taking the inside position and going through into the clamp. Okay. From this general situation, look how I place my foot down on the floor and I start that turn. My knee comes over the top and crimps in. My left knee comes towards my right knee. And as a result, we're in the perfect position to go in and get a particularly strong form of break. We're going to move to an interesting new topic now. We're still looking at Jujigatami from bottom position, but it's a significantly different bottom position. Whenever I work from guard position, the two basic choices I have are between supine positions, where I'm flat on my back, and seated positions, say for example, some versions of butterfly guard. Traditionally, Jujigatami is almost always taught from supine positions. You have your first day in Jiu-Jitsu, you go to introduction class, they normally teach you an armbar from guard, closed guard in particular. The overwhelming majority of Jujigatami setups and training from bottom position is done from supine positions, lying down. Don't let this fool you. You can have a deadly, deadly Jujigatami from bottom position from seated situations as well. Again, this video series is ultimately about mastery, your mastery in particular. If you're going to call yourself a master of Jujigatami from bottom position, be strong at both supine situations and seated situations. Don't sell yourself short. Don't cut down the numbers of opportunities you have. I'm going to show you now the basic differences between attacking with Juji from seated situations versus the more conventional supine situations. Bear in mind a fundamental distinction. Here's a general rule with you that will help you in your development. As a general rule, the best and most successful setups from supine situations for Jujigatami involve control of your opponent's shoulder. As a result, they tend to be a little bit slower in nature and application. When you enter from the seated situation, it's almost always a speed-based setup where you have to move quickly and efficiently into the move. Now, that doesn't mean I'm asking you to set a speed record here. I'm not asking you to be a 19-year-old kid with fast legs or what have you. I'm 52 years old, and I can do this without a problem. You can too. When I say speed-based setup, I don't mean I'm expecting you to move like the Flash. What I am asking you to do is don't hang around. Know where you want to go and move directly to it. No one says you have to be like Jesse Owens here, but you can't delay and obfuscate and procrastinate, etc., etc. Just go directly to the move and you'll have sufficient speed to get there. So let's start off with a guy who's on two knees in front of me, and we're in a seated guard situation. Typically from here, people are thinking in terms of all kinds of attacks, but Jujigatami is usually not one of them. That's a pity, because this is a great time for us to go into Juji. Very often when we work in situations like this, opponents will look to get collar ties. Okay? Not a bad thing for him to do, because if he can put his hand on my knee and push my knees out to the side, he can use that collar tie to start passing my guard. Okay? So that's not a bad thing for him to start doing. The good news is that's going to set up a lot of our Jujigatami attacks. So from a situation where my training partner is in, working like so, we are going to take a particular grip upon our training partner. We're going to go in and take our own collar tie. He's got a collar tie on me, I'm going to take a collar tie on him. I have a choice now between going under his arm. That's one good option. A second choice is for me to go over his arm. Okay? There's a grip that we often employ in the standing position. I'll just show it to you in a standing situation. There's a grip that we often employ in a standing situation where someone collar ties us, where we take our arm and we go wrist deep inside our training partner's bicep, just like so. And my fingers hook onto the far side of his arm. And as a result, we can hit a move, a shuck or a slide by, where I put my fingers in behind his triceps and I physically pull his arm on by, and we go behind him to gain advantage in the standing situation. So again, this is a very useful grip in standing situation, and pretty soon we see it's a useful grip down on the floor as well. So from a standing wrestling situation, I put everything around the corner and my hand becomes like a hook. Okay? From that hook position, I step around, and then from here I physically flick my training partner's arm on by and I get behind him. Okay? So it's a fantastically useful grip in the standing situation. We can easily adapt it down on the floor. For a situation where we have a guy here in our guard, and he likes to go into a collar tie, just like so. I go in on my training partner, I put my hand in that same hook position. I put my hand on my training partner's head and collar, just like so, and I hook into the tricep. I put my foot here on Placido's hip, just like this, and I start drawing his weight forward. In one motion, I flick my legs around the corner and we catch our training partner in the usual fashion, making sure that my knee goes over his neck and my foot clamps down towards my own knee, just like so. When he goes to yank out and away from me, it's a difficult thing, and we end up in a strong Judigatami attack right off the bat. So we have an opponent here in open guard. From here I go in and I catch a hold of my training partner at the collar. As he starts to rise and pull away from me, etc., etc., that's what I'm looking for. Look how my foot goes on the hip, just like so. And then from here I go around the corner, my head pitches, and we throw and catch. Okay? From here, we lock up on our training partner and find ourselves in the perfect opportunity to go into a strong Judigatami. Because my leg is over my training partner's neck, even with no hands, when he goes to yank out, it's a difficult thing. And from here, we get the finish we're looking for. You will remember what I advised you with regards speed-based versions of Judigatami earlier in the video. Whenever we use a speed-based entry into Judigatami, you must make a hook of the hollow of your knee over your opponent's neck. Okay, that is always your goal. Again, when I say a speed-based move, I'm not asking you to move at 100 miles an hour. I'm asking you to move directly to your targets without delay and procrastination. Whatever speed you move at will be adequate provided you go without delays and procrastination. My target is to get the hollow of my knee onto the back of his neck. That's what's going to enable me to make up for the lack of control of the shoulder that I have in the more control-based Judigatamis that we normally favor. Okay? So when I have my opponent here, my whole goal is to get the hollow of my knee on top of his neck. Okay, and we need a method to get it there. So I go in, I get my initial collar tie, and then from the situation I can put a foot here, I can put a foot here. They're both good options, but I do need some kind of control over distance. Then from here I pitch my body over to the side and I throw everything up and I make that catch. Okay, now as he goes to yank his arms free, it's so difficult because of the positioning of my leg. If I just had my calf muscle on the leg, that's when he can start to yank and go free. So the whole thing is to catch right over the neck, just like so that my calf muscle is physically behind his neck. When he goes to yank out, it's so difficult under those circumstances, and we get the break we're looking for. So once again, we have an opponent on two knees in front of us, and we're working from a seat guard situation. I go in and I make my grips. The whole key is to get that useful grip that we so often use in the standing situation to slide past people. My wrist bends 90 degrees and my fingers come all the way around behind. Okay. Typically we use it in the standing position to hit slide bys, but down on the ground we can use it to hit Judigatamis. So he goes in and we get our hands in place. Now from here there's not much warning of an approaching Judigatami. I place a foot on this hip, a foot on this hip. You take your pick, they're both good choices. And then everything comes around the corner and I make that hook grip on my training partner's arm. So I'm hooked into the arm. When he goes to yank out, there's a surprising amount of resistance just from that hook. Okay? And then the whole thing is to throw my leg in such a way that my calf muscle gets behind his neck. So I take the hollow of my knee high on the neck and cramp in. Big strong body. Now he goes to yank away, and it's so difficult. And from here, we can start going into strong breaks. Let's have a look at it from another angle. So we have an opponent in here and we're working from a seated guard type situation. From here, hand goes over the top of my training partner's neck, second hand in place, foot goes on the hip, and I make that turn, and there's the catch. Now, as he tries to pull away from me, I can make a choice between inside and outside scoop and put him down to the floor in a winning situation. Once again, from here, we go in head to head. There's the initial catch on my training partner. I can put my right foot on, I can put my left foot on. The main thing is I create the distance that I need to go around the corner and make that initial catch. Now, when he tries to yank out, it's such a difficult thing from a situation like this. And we can rapidly put him down to the mat and into a winning position. Now, we've been looking at seated Judigatami entries. We just looked at a situation where our training partner was on two knees. Let's start to modify this into situations where people are standing over us or they got one knee on the floor. Okay. Quite often we'll be dealing with an opponent who's down on two knees, and from here he makes his initial collar tie and we go in on our training partner and tie up, and then I see him put a knee up, just like so. Okay, so he's starting to rise. Don't be intimidated by this. You can go straight into your Juji Gatame just as you did before. Okay, don't think, oh, he put his knee up, I can't do the move. Absolutely not. From here, we put our foot on our training partner's hip, and just like before, we start that turnout action. Just like before, we make that good catch over our training partner's neck and head. Just like before, it's an easy thing to tilt our training partner down to the mat and go into the winning positions that we generally favor. Same thing is true if my opponent is standing over me. Okay, if he's in a low stance and I see that his head is lower than his hips, remember the iron law of head and hips. Okay, if the head is lower than the hips, Juji Gatame is on. You can hit it. If the head is higher than the hips, now I'm more inclined to go into his legs. Okay, so when head is below the hips, we go upper body. When head is above hips, we typically go into the legs. That's the iron law of attacking from seated guard situations. So here we are, we're working in positions like this, and I see him go through and get a collar tie. Not a bad thing for him to do, because if he gets a hand on my knee, he can definitely start passing me in these situations. So it's a wise thing for him to do. Okay, but we can learn to take advantage of this. The moment he gets a hold of my head in this situation, I will never tolerate his hands on my knees. If he puts the hands on the knee, he can start passing my guard. Okay? So whenever I have a situation where he comes in and collar ties me in situations like this, I'll always control my training partner just like so. Okay? Now I place my hand over the top and I start moving him forward, and I get my foot up there to his hip. Once I get my foot on the hip, it's safe for me to let go of the wrist now. Okay, because I'm connected to him with my lower body. And from here, it's an easy thing for us to go around the corner and make the catch that we're always looking for. Look how as we make the catch, my legs are in tight together, and we're in a good position to start putting him down to the mat and into a winning position. Let's have a look at that again. We've got an opponent working down here like so. He goes in and takes a collar tie. So immediately I get a hold of my training partner's wrist. I don't want him blasting past my legs here. I put my arm in over the top. I start drawing him forward. A foot goes up on either side. It doesn't really matter. Okay, as long as we get a foot up. Now from here, I make the turn. I catch a hold of my training partner's head, and there's the lock over my training partner's head. As a result, we can quickly turn him over and down to the mat and start locking up into a winning position. Done in this way, you can make very quick catches on your opponent's head. Please bear in mind the general advice I always give you guys whenever you're using speed-based approaches into Juji Gatame. Focus on the catch of your opponent's neck with the hollow of your knee. You don't have control of your opponent's shoulder girdle with a top lock here. So there's a general lack of control. So all the control has to occur right from the start as soon as you get a hold of the Juji. And the way to control him is to get the hollow of your knee locked over his neck. So one more time. We're here, locked up with a training partner. We see him in this kind of low stance. We tie up our training partner's wrist, and we get our arm in over the top. Now we go in and we catch a hold of our training partner's head. When he tries to posture up, you've got total control of the head now. Okay? And this is a great opportunity for us to come up and make that catch. You see how my calf muscle is all the way around behind his head, and my knee, the hollow of my knee to be precise, is right there in his neck. So when he tries to yank his head out, it's a difficult thing to achieve, and it's relatively easy for us to use our direction leg to put him over and down and into a situation where we can apply the Juji Gatame. Done in this way, it doesn't matter whether your opponent's down on two knees, he's on one knee, or he's on both feet. As long as his head is below his hips, you can go immediately and threaten him with Juji Gatame. Now, we've been looking at entering into the Juji Gatame from seated position. Big theme I'm trying to push on you guys is that most people fixate on Juji Gatame from bottom position from supine situations. That's fine, nothing wrong with that. That's where most of your finishes are going to come from. But don't ignore the possibility of seated Juji Gatame entries. They're a very, very valuable addition to your arsenal. We've looked at situations where our opponent had a collar tie. Okay, what if he doesn't have a collar tie? What if the guy just ties up with your biceps? Can I still do it? Absolutely. Slightly different gripping, however. Okay, we've got a cat here on two knees, and he's got, say, inside bicep tie, just like so. Okay, so he's saying, he's starting to realize, hey, if I grab the guy's collar, he comes after me with Juji Gatame. So instead, he's gripping down here, like so. Okay, in these situations, we use a slightly different grip. We come in on our training partner, and we secure the tricep, and we draw his hand forward, up. like so. I don't care, even if he has his thumb inside my bicep and he's pushing his arms into my bicep, you can always do a simple motion that draws his arm forward, okay? The key is to turn your wrist so your wrist bends 90 degrees around his arm. Don't have a straight wrist. You'll never do it from here. So I contour everything around and I bring everything over my shoulder, just like so. Okay, so once again, he's got everything. Even if his thumb is inside, it means nothing. If his thumb's outside, it's even easier. Okay, but even if he has the inside position, I bring my arm around the corner and everything goes over my shoulder. Then I grab his collar. Okay, so he wasn't grabbing my collar, but I can still grab his. So here we are, we're working from this position. Look how I take everything up and over the top and I grab a hold of his collar. When he goes to yank his arm back, it's damn difficult because you got this damn good grip here, just like so. Okay, I'm going to throw my body down and focus on the catch. That puts me in the perfect position. Bring him up and over into the Judigatami. So once again, we have an opponent down here, and he's opting, instead of for collar ties, as we did in the previous move, where I went in like so, now he's opting for bicep control. Okay, he's going upper body on me at the bicep. So we focus on drawing his hand in over the top and catching just in here. Now we're in the perfect position to throw everything around the corner, and we make the catch. Okay, as always, the catch is going to be my knee, the hollow of my knee, over my training partner's neck. And as a result, we can quickly and easily put that man down into a position where we can dominate the Judy position with him on his back. Let's have a look at that from another angle. We have an opponent here on two knees, and he opts for inside bicep ties, so he's not grabbing the collar anymore. Okay, we go in on our training partner, and look how we focus on bringing everything over the shoulder. I go in and catch, just like so. When he goes to yank away, it's not an easy thing. It's a very strong and controlling grip. As I go around the corner, we focus on that catch, which puts the hollow of my knee over my training partner's neck, so that my calf muscle can back heel on the back of his head. When Placido goes to yank out, it's a difficult thing. And as a result, we can quickly put him down and go into a winning position. One more time. Here we have an opponent. I'm here. He takes the inside bicep tie. We focus on taking everything up and over the shoulder. We get in on that collar tie from this position. Even as I make the turn, my arm catches over the top. Okay, let's move around a little. You'll see how my arm switches from here to here. Okay, and as a result, I can throw my legs. Look how from here, the throw of the legs involves the split of my legs, and then the throw that puts my knee over his neck. Okay, so there's the speed-based method in operation. There's the split, and the catch brings my body off the floor. Split and catch. When he goes to yank out, even with no hands, he goes to yank free. It's so difficult. And from here, you have enormously strong finishing potential. The idea is that we split and catch. Split and catch. I rise off the points of my shoulders and catch the hollow of my knee right over his neck. You should almost feel it as like a slap over the neck. So here we are. We're in a seated guard type situation. Look how I start by taking everything over the shoulder. Okay. As we spin, my hand goes over. Okay. So I start the spin action, and there's the catch. And as a result, we end up in perfect attacking position. We're looking at the fascinating idea of going in on our opponent from a seated position and catching him with Judigatami. Essentially, we're looking at what we're defining as a speed-based method. You're no longer focused on controlling the shoulder first and then taking your time to control the guy into the Judi. Rather, we're creating an angle off the grip and we're attacking. Essentially, the pattern we're working with here is get a grip, move rapidly to the target, and get the hollow of your knee over your opponent's neck to hold him in a tight Judigatami and get to the finish. You don't have to set a speed record, but you can't hang around either. So far, we've looked at grips where our opponent controlled our head. Then we looked at grips where he controlled our arms. Now let's look at what is probably the most common grip, where he goes to control your legs. Remember, he's interested in passing your guard. So a lot of guys are going to go into grip your legs. What do we do now? we go to 2-on-1 gripping. Okay, so we've got an opponent here, and he's working, and he's getting a hold of my legs. Smart thing for him to do. If he gets a hold of my ankles and lifts them, we got it. Yep, back down. If he gets a hold of my ankles and lifts them, he can put me on my back. Okay, so often we'll get people working like so. We'll get some people who push the knees to the side and start passing. However he's doing it, he's grabbing your legs. Okay. Whenever we see this kind of thing, one thing we often do is we get a hold of our training partner's hand and we put it to the center line just like so. Okay. So if he's got two hands on my legs, that's never a good thing. So we take one hand, we bring it to the center line, and we lock our hand over the top, and we go to an elbow 2-on-1. Okay. So he's got two hands on my legs. I take one hand to the center line, I get my grip on it, and I come up to an elbow 2-on-1. When he goes to yank away, my whole fixation is on getting his hand to my hip, like so. Okay, I put my foot on my training partner's hip, my second leg goes over the top, and we make an initial catch on our training partner. Now, from here, if he stays where he is, I'll hit a triangle. So what they all do, they all start posturing up and away. I reset my hands, 1, 2, so I control the inside of the wrist. My second leg goes over, I go to a 3/4 Judigatami. As he tries to posture up and away, we have the perfect braking position, and we get strong finishes as a result. Once again, we start off with two hands on one. I catch, I get my first grip, I go to an elbow 2-on-1, and I take his hand towards my hip. From here, my foot goes on his hip, and now we're in the perfect position to take the inside position with my right foot and throw my legs into a winning situation. If he stays where he is, I'll lock a triangle. So he has to start posturing up and away. I switch my hands and go 2-on-1. As one leg controls him, the second leg goes over. We now have two cross-faced legs, the 3/4 Judigatami position. And from here, we can apply tremendous pressure to our training partner's arm. Look how strong the cross-face pressure is. I have no hands. When Placido goes to yank his arm out, it's physically impossible. Why? Because my feet are back heeling down to the floor, and two legs have caught him above the neck. If I make contact with my calf muscles here, look how easily he pulls his elbow free. It's a joke. It's only when we go over the neck with both of our knees. Now when we back heel, he goes to pull out, even with no hands, go to yank. It's physically impossible. And now you've got a truly strong lock. Okay? So you've got a tremendous benefit here. You've got two cross-faced legs instead of one. That gives you two opportunities to get the hollow of your knee over his neck. If you can make that connection on a speed-based Judigatami, you're going to finish a lot of people. Okay, so once again, we've got an opponent down here on two knees. We're working from butterfly guard. We go through, we transfer the hand to the center line, we get in there on our grips and bring everything forward. From here, it's not a difficult thing for us to start throwing our legs into a good attacking position. He knows there's a triangle here, so he starts posturing up and away. I throw my legs into a winning position. When he tries to yank out, it's so damn difficult. And from here, we get enormously strong breaks. So this is a fantastic way for us to take hands off the legs, stop them from passing, and go directly into Judigatami attacks, specifically 3/4 Juji, one of our big favorites. Now we're looking at attacking Judigatami in a seated situation. Let's look at some alternative grips, which I greatly favor. One of my big favorites is over ties. We've got a training partner on two knees in front of us. Let's come around a little. And from here, he goes in and makes a collar tie on us. Okay, in these situations, one of my favorite grips is to over tie my opponent. So I have a collar tie on top of my training partner's over tie. Sorry, my over tie goes over his collar tie on the same side. I take my free hand and I lock here at his elbow. So when he goes to yank his arm out, it's surprisingly difficult. Now from here, it's not a difficult thing for us to go into 3/4 Judigatami just by locking up like so. I go inside my training partner's leg, and then from here, my hand is replaced by my knee. As a result, my arm can now easily go over the top, and what have we got? My knee is over his neck, the second leg comes into place, and we're in a tight 3/4 Judigatami, ready for the break. Once again, my opponent comes out, he applies a collar tie, I apply the over tie, and we lock in just like so. From here, however we do it, we get our legs in over the top. As always from here, I go around the corner and my knee wedges in behind his head. Now from here, as he starts to move his head away from me, I lose the triangle, but I gain the Judigatami. Now from here, we're in a very strong breaking situation. Two hands on the wrist, and there's the finish that we're looking for. Once again, we have an opponent here in front of us. He elects for a collar tie. I elect for over tie. I get a hold of my training partner's elbow, so when he tries to yank his arm free, it's a shockingly difficult thing to do. Now from here, we kick in over the top and find ourselves in a perfect attacking situation. As he tries to posture up and away, look how our hips follow him. And as a result, we end up in the perfect three-quarter Jujigatami. From here, not a difficult thing for us to go into our usual finishes. This is the over tie as a way of setting up three-quarter Juji from a seated position. Now we're looking at attacking from a seated guard situation. We're looking at alternative grips. Here's one of my big favorites, the over wrap grip. From a situation where we're in a seated guard, very often we have an opponent whose hands are in a neutral position. Okay, he's elected not to go for legs yet, hasn't gone for upper body, his hands are in a non-committal situation. From here, we're going to get 2-on-1 just like so. We're going to pass his hand to the outside and we're going to secure our training partner's arm. And I'm going to clamp my lat muscle and my tricep around my training partner's arm and hold on at the elbow. So when he goes to yank out, it's a difficult thing. Okay, once again, we have an opponent here, we're fighting in a neutral situation. I catch, grab, and lock in place. Okay, when he goes to yank away from me, it's a difficult thing, especially when I get a hold of my training partner's head just like so. Now, in this situation, I'm just going to kick my leg over my training partner's neck. From here, my arm scoops inside, and we go over into a three-quarter Jujigatami position. And once again, we've got the win with Jujigatami. In this case, a three-quarter variation. So, here we are, we're playing our usual hand fight situation. And then I catch a hold of my training partner's wrist and elbow, and I draw everything in and I pinch everything around. Even with no hands, when my opponent goes to yank out, just that pinch is quite difficult. Okay, it becomes even more difficult when I hold the elbow and then ultimately the head. And from here, it's an easy thing to go over and catch a hold of my training partner's neck. Look how from here, look how I bring the leg over the top. We've got an enormously tight Jujigatami. If for whatever reason he took his other hand and pushed my knee off, then I would just cross my feet and apply the same move with crossed feet from behind the head. Okay, both are deadly efficient arm breaks. So once again, we've got an opponent here working in neutral situation. We catch, we guide the hand to the outside and lock in, and we catch just like so. Now from here, my foot goes over the shoulder and we kick into place. Now I turn the corner, my leg goes over the top, and there's our first break. If he clears the leg, I just go crossed feet and apply the same break for the finish. Some outstanding ways of using unconventional grips to go into Jujigatami from a seated situation. Now, another grip which I often favor on a seated opponent whose hands are in a neutral hand fight situation is double wrist with my palms up. Okay, remember we can go double wrist with palms down, we can go double wrist with palms up. For the Jujigatami, I'm going to favor a palms up double wrist grip. So here we are, we're working from a neutral situation. My opponent's in here, we're hand fighting in the usual kind of fashion. In one motion, I'm just going to come through and I'm going to catch my training partner with my thumbs in opposite directions and hold in just like so. Okay, off that initial catch, I'm going to post my foot on my training partner's leg and I just draw his hand in towards me. When he goes to yank away, it's a surprisingly robust grip, especially in the time frame available. Okay, so here we are, we're playing the usual kind of hand fight situation, and there's my initial catch just like so. Now in one motion, I just throw everything over the top, and my hand position is such that it's so easy to make the three-quarter Juji and go directly on the attack into the finish. So once again, we have an opponent in a neutral hand fight situation, and we're playing the usual kind of game. Boom, there's the catch. Okay, from here it's an easy thing for us to throw our legs and end up in the perfect attacking position, ready to attack with a three-quarter Juji. One more time from a different angle. We have an opponent working in our butterfly guard, and as always from here, we play the usual kind of hand fight, leg fight, etc. I go in and make my catch. Okay, now from here, legs throw, legs go over the top, and there's the three-quarter Juji in for a strong finish. Because I've done a good job of catching with my two legs when he goes to yank out, even with no hands. Let's go, Placido. Even if he stands up and goes to yank, it's a difficult thing. And from here, to make a strong catch for the finish. Okay, you can see the tremendous power of the double crossface and a three-quarter Jujigatami. Because you've got two legs over the neck, it's very hard to pull away.